don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of
anymore.
millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
Tense moments in the Oval Office as President Trump, Vice President Vance, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sparred in a heated exchange Friday afternoon over the war in Ukraine. The exchange came just minutes into President Zelensky's first trip to the U.S. since Trump's inauguration and follows visits from both President Emmanuel Macron of France and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer this week, both of whom urged President Trump to continue U.S. support of Ukraine in the war. Now, a lot of questions about the future of that support as the planned joint press conference between Trump and Zelensky has been canceled. For the very latest, we're bringing in the Hill's national political reporter, Julia Manchester. Julia, thanks so much for joining us. Big news day today. I want to get your thoughts on this exchange. At several points, both President Trump and Vice President Vance called Zelensky disrespectful and ungrateful. Let's take a listen.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
What are your immediate takeaways from the photo op?
Well, look, Judy, this was pretty remarkable. You know, we have a country, Ukraine, which is obviously at war with Russia, a longstanding U.S. adversary. But this week alone, we have seen a complete reversal on U.S. foreign policy when it comes to Russia. You know, on Monday, during President Trump's meeting with Emmanuel Macron of France, we saw in New York City at the United Nations meeting, the U.S. voting alongside Russia, Sudan, North Korea against a resolution that condemned Russia's role in the war in Ukraine 3 years after the country invaded. We've also heard President Trump refer to Zelensky as a dictator in recent days, something he has certainly walked back. But look, anything he's walked back since calling Zelensky a dictator is really old news now that we saw them, you know, shouting at each other, and Trump and Vance really gaining up on, I should say, Zelensky in the Oval Office. The press conference is off now. The deal signing of that rare earth minerals deal is off. So we know that Zelensky has left the White House. So very, very tense moments. And you got to wonder, if you're Vladimir Putin, what are you thinking right now? I imagine this is a pretty good day for Vladimir Putin.
Zelensky, of course, is in town to regain some lost support from the Trump administration. Part of that was this much anticipated deal over rare earth minerals that you mentioned, Julia. How much of an impact do you see this exchange having on that deal?
Look, we know that Zelensky is supposed to speak with Fox News later today. He's speaking at the Hudson Institute, or he's supposed to be speaking. We'll see what happens with his schedule, so we'll hear more then. But look, we know that the deal signing is off, so the deal could potentially be very much up in the air right now. I think this exchange, in many ways, threw this really into the, the unknown.
Back here at home, President Trump is expected to address a joint session of Congress next week. It follows a busy first month, from executive orders to tariffs to deportations and more. What are you expecting to hear from him?
Well, after this exchange in the Oval Office with Zelensky, I am curious to see what he says about Ukraine and the U.S.'s relationship with Ukraine. We actually just saw a statement from Congressman Don Bacon, a Republican that sometimes is willing to go up against President Trump. He sort of condemned President Trump's remarks on this, saying he was essentially concerned. So President Trump is going to be in front of this joint session of Congress, potentially in front of a number of Republicans who have been very vocally supportive of Ukraine. So I'm curious to see what he has to say about that. But there's been also a number of things happening back at home. I think top of the priority list for many Americans is the economy, how he's looking to combat rising prices. How do tariffs play into that? We know that the president's critics have said that tariffs will only result in higher prices on goods and services. But also DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. There is a lot of confusion confusion about Doge, in particular Elon Musk's role in Doge, and what authority he has to carry out a lot of these cutbacks, and job losses, etc. But I am curious to see where Elon Musk is during the presidential address. Is he in the chamber with everyone? Does he get a front row seat or in the balcony? We'll have to see.
As you mentioned, Julia, so many people are frustrated with high prices and comparatively low wages. Many people have lost their jobs in these sweeping federal layoffs. The administration continues to blame many of the current economic woes on former President Biden. How long do you think they can play that card?
Not much longer. Look, I think President Trump obviously campaigned on bringing down prices. And with he's inherited some economic headwinds from President Biden, and he's been able to sort of publicly try to take credit for that. So I don't think he can run away from this much longer. And I think Democrats will certainly be itching to, they already are, blaming Trump for, continuously high prices. Democrats saw how well he and Republicans were able to campaign on that issue. Now going into 2026, the midterms, they're looking to take advantage of that as well.
Julia Manchester, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Attorney General Pam Bondi is demanding FBI Director Kash Patel release the full and complete Epstein files. She's accusing federal investigators in New York of withholding thousands of pages in the Jeffery Epstein case that she has vowed to make public. NewsNation's Laura Ingle joins us from New York with the latest in this battle to finally make Epstein's list public.
Judy, we've got calls and emails into the Department of Justice to see if that deadline was met. So far, no response. You'll remember yesterday we heard from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi in a letter addressed to FBI Director Kash Patel that was made public, expressing frustration over the lack of communication from the FBI over the Epstein files. Bondi has accused the FBI of withholding what she calls thousands of pages. Bondi demanding the full and complete Epstein files to be delivered by the FBI by 8 a.m. this morning. That deadline has come and gone. The letter also directing Patel to conduct an immediate investigation to be delivered within 14 days into why her order to hand over the full set of documents was not followed. There were a few documents we saw released yesterday looking like things that we have seen before. The Justice Department claiming they were declassified, but there are no markings on the documents themselves indicating if they were classified or declassified. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi instructed the Bureau field office here in New York to hand over, quote, all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. Now, that first batch of files made public yesterday, which includes a series of flight logs of Epstein's private jet and a partially redacted contacts list, as well as redacted list of masseuses, was made public. Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. His associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted in 2021 for her role in trafficking minors and is currently serving a 20-year sentence, a conviction that was upheld on appeal last year. As far as what we expect next, we know that when the first batch was received, the DOJ had to carefully comb through the documents to redact the names of victims, and we do expect the same procedure with this next set of files that will most likely slow the roll of this document release. Judy?
NewsNation's Laura Ingle, thank you. Paramount has become the latest company to roll back its DEI policies, citing President Trump's executive order targeting the initiatives. The news comes amid a pending lawsuit filed by Trump against Paramount Global-owned CBS News. Among the changes, the company will no longer set or use aspirational numerical goals related to the race, ethnicity, sex, or gender of hires. Paramount says it'll also end its policy of collecting those stats for U.S. job applicants. The media giant is seeking FCC approval for its deal with Skydance Media, the entertainment company known for producing Top Gun Maverick and the Mission Impossible movies. It also comes as fellow media corporation Comcast is under investigation by the federal government for its DEI policies. Amazon Studios and Disney are among the other media companies that have changed DEI policies since Trump's order. Grassroots group People's Union USA is calling on Americans to boycott spending money on Friday for one day only. The move aims to protest the current economic and political climate. The boycott comes amid rising grocery and egg prices and skyrocketing housing costs. The group says customers should avoid purchases from major businesses during the 24-hour period that started at midnight. They also say Americans should abstain from using credit or debit cards. The People's Union USA says the goal is to unite Americans against corporate greed contributing to high costs. Blackouts of this nature typically make a dent in daily retail sales but aren't sustainable, according to retail experts. A new report from the Commerce Department shows inflation slowed slightly in January, allowing economists to relax a little after many feared President Trump's tariffs and immigration crackdown would put strain on consumers' power to spend. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, or PCE, is the Fed's preferred metric for inflation. January's report showed inflation rose 2.5% over that month, slightly slower than in December, when inflation rose about 2.6% over the month. Meantime, personal income increased nearly 1% in the first month of the year. That boost due in large part to Social Security cost of living adjustments. Experts say the latest numbers reinforce the Fed's decision to keep interest rates steady in January. The Fed meets again in mid-March to reconsider interest rates. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Judy Kurtz. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.